The oldest prophecies did not write your name in ink. They circled it with absence, the way a sacred room is defined by the space you do not enter, the breath you do not break. What is named too soon is hunted by imitation. What is guarded by silence survives the centuries. So the message crossed time disguised as images. A city made of vowels, a ladder no carpenter can build, a sun that glows like a face behind gauze. It traveled through riddles because tyranny polices the obvious, but rarely suspects the luminous double meanings of poets and mothers. Every déjà vu you tried to explain away was an instruction written by your future patience. You were leaving yourself breadcrumbs across lifetimes because the shortest distance between forgetting and remembrance is the ache that never stopped singing your name. Prophecy is not a calendar pinned to the sky. It is a contract with your courage. Its ink is consent. Its seal is willingness. When you stop waiting for permission to be true, the clause finds you and glows like a line that always existed in the document. A story. A child asked, "When will the sky open?" The elder said, "When your hands stop waiting to be told they are doors." Years later, the child became a healer and realized the first door was the ribcage unclenching around a neglected truth. Consider your own hands. What have they been waiting for? Someone to name their purpose, or a silence deep enough to hear the original instruction? What happens if you stop bargaining for certainty and begin moving as if your feet remember the road? You are not reading a prophecy. The prophecy is reading you. It is measuring the distance between your appetite for spectacle and your hunger for honesty. And it is choosing the one that will not betray you when the lights go down. Tonight, the circling ends. The sentence uncloses, and the verb takes its place. The missing piece is not another fact or teacher. The missing piece is the geometry of your yes. Imagine a perfect circle, a field of gold, so even you could fall asleep inside it. Now imagine a hairline break, barely visible, thin as a memory you don't want to admit you keep. That break is the world's favorite hiding place. It hosts the counterfeits that sell you almost completion. You feel the break as ache, restlessness after good news, hunger after praise, a room that looks correct but somehow forgets your name. The ache is not a flaw. It is the compass whose needle refuses to point at false north. The ache is the shepherd of your honesty. False light floods the gap with props, robes of promotion, ladders of status, doors that open only when you flatter them. It packages belonging like a product and whispers, completion can be purchased, transcendence can be influenced. Yet the body knows the difference between bread and advertisement. Parable. A woman carried a cracked bowl and cursed its failure. But the path the bowl watered bloomed with lilies. When she saw what the crack was feeding, she stopped calling it defect and began calling it direction. Her neighbors picked lilies and blessed the crack that had fed them. What is your ache watering along your path? Where are the lilies you trample because the crack embarrasses you? If you numb the ache, you starve the secret garden that was assigned to your journey. Flowers that grow only when someone refuses to pretend. The break's negative space holds a shape that looks like a human standing upright. It is the silhouette of a consenting heart. The circle chose to be completed by courage, not machinery, by personhood, not program. Completion, then, is not something you climb into. It is something you become. The circle is not a ride. It is a vow that expects a witness. The witness is your willingness to stand where the world prefers a price tag. Every time you step into that gap with truth, the circle closes a little more. Not with applause, but with peace. The kind that doesn't need an audience to exist. Hidden in creation's smallest print is a clause the archons cannot counterfeit. Nothing completes without the human heart consenting in truth. Coercion cannot sign it. Fear cannot forge it. Only a freely given yes closes the circle that refuses to be stolen. Imitation can stage holiness. It can choreograph tears, design ladders, shine lights that mimic dawn. But it cannot imitate a yes that doesn't barter for safety. That signature lives beyond the reach of compliance and spectacle. Your design includes an oath seeded before language. I will not return by theft. I will recognize what is mine by the peace it brings. I will remember without humiliating those who forget. This oath is why you suffer when you pretend. It is allergic to counterfeits. A tale. A city outlawed silence so the markets could sing all day. A child sold buckets of quiet and people drank, remembering their names. The merchants raged. You cannot sell what makes us unnecessary. The child smiled. I'm not selling, I'm reminding. The law against silence collapsed under the gravity of need. The human clause is a well that refills as you draw from it. When you drink, your motives clarify. You stop negotiating with anxiety and begin negotiating with truth. It cost you the theatre of virtue, but it gave you the substance that never melts when hot eyes are on you. Ask, do I want salvation or do I want truth? They look alike until the bill arrives. Salvation without truth charges you applause. Truth charges you illusions. Which currency are you willing to surrender? Consent is the crown no empire can forge. Once you wear it, harvest fails on contact. The counterfeit economy cannot metabolize a human who refuses to spend fear as a tithe. This is why the clause is dangerous to control systems. A consenting human dismantles the throne those systems depend on, not by screaming at it, but by refusing to bow where bowing would cost the soul. When tyrants seize the loudness, truth chooses embroidery. It hides in margins, in lullabies, in gestures nobody thinks to police. The encoders braided it into images that can live in kitchens and alleyways, into sayings you can smuggle under your tongue. They gave you a pearl hidden in a field, a lamp under a bushel, a name you must discover rather than inherit. They taught with parables because control can kidnap slogans, but it cannot enslave an orchard of metaphors fruiting at different hours. Parable. In a burned library, one book survived. Its ink turned invisible until touched by tears. Scholars argued its worth. A mother, grieving, wept over it, and the text bloomed. It responds to honest need, she said. The council could not outlaw the chemistry of sorrow. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to approach holy pages as a thirsty creature rather than an expert. Need is a password control cannot counterfeit because it always becomes what it pretends. Fake need curdles. True need clarifies. The symbols are not riddles designed to humiliate intelligence. They are windowed doors that open at the temperature of humility. When you stop trying to impress the gate recognizes your original face. Prophecy survived because it moved like water into the lowest places, where the armory of pride cannot follow. It survived because grandiosity cannot taste it, and therefore forgets to lock it up. This is why you keep finding the same architecture in distant traditions. A ladder, a thread, a cup, a wedding, a homecoming. The forms change like dialects. The grammar remains, loyal to the heart that remembers. When you read the symbols with your life rather than only with your mind, you become the marginalia waking up and writing back. The text turns toward you and admits what it hid for centuries. Your name has been here all along. If you can be sold a ladder, someone will build a store. If you can be sold a robe, someone will design a brand. The archons curate an industry of ascent, where every shelf promises a taller self. But the price tag is always the same: obedience to a light that needs your fear. Counterfeit sunshines offer visibility without vulnerability, applause without intimacy, cosmic language without the rigorous tenderness of truth. They love grandeur because grandeur hides the places they cannot afford to illuminate: motive, memory, mercy. Parable. A traveler followed a golden road that charged a toll at every mile. At the end, a gatekeeper said, "You have walked far enough to deserve light." The traveler said, "If light must be deserved, what have I been following?" Then turned and found a footpath homeward, lined with small lamps that asked no price and never burned his eyes. How do you tell true light from the theatre? True light does not audition you for worthiness. It reintroduces you to honesty and lets honesty raise the room. Theatre demands more spotlight. Truth invites more seeing. Ask, what does this teaching require from my fear? If fear is the tithe, you are financing your own disguise. If truth is the tithe, you will shed skins you thought were survival. Which loss feels like freedom when you imagine it fully? The counterfeit sun cannot tolerate silence. It feeds on motion and noise. It fears the moment you stop performing, because that is when the human clause returns to the table and asks to read the contract aloud. Theatre says, "You are almost there, keep buying miles." Truth says, "You are here, now be honest in a way that no audience can steal." The first makes you a customer, the second makes you a citizen of the real. When you face the counterfeit and do not bargain, the stage lights dim themselves. Your eyes adjust. You begin to see by a source that doesn't blind. You stop mistaking glare for glory. Memory is not a filing cabinet of facts. It is a living thread tied to a door that opens when you tug with sincerity. The thread does not yank you. It answers your pressure with a pressure of its own, like a hand through a curtain. You have felt it in strange mercy. The day you told the truth you were sure would ruin you, and somehow the room became kinder. That was the thread tightening, the way a friend grips back when your balance slips. Parable. A diver hunted pearls in violent waters. She learned the sea by scars and nearly drowned religion. One day, exhausted, she floated and stopped fighting the swell. In the quiet, she noticed a thin line sliding along her wrist. She followed it down and found a cove where the water rested. The pearls lay in sand, shallow enough to kneel. She realized the thread had been tied there long before she learned to struggle. The thread is not proof you were abandoned. It is evidence you plan to forget and plan to return. You left yourself a map that would survive storms you could not forecast. Ask, where does my honesty find me softer? What happens to my breath when I stop arguing with silence? Do I feel a tug that isn't external, an inward gravity asking for less spectacle and more substance? Memory returns as a sequence, not a slogan. Confession loosens, forgiveness rearranges, clarity arrives, practice stabilizes. These are not punishments, but the gentle mechanics of restoration. If you follow the thread only when you win, it will feel fickle. If you follow it when you are embarrassed, it will feel parental. It will not flatter your cleverness. It will nourish your integrity. And yes, you will grieve who you were when you needed the counterfeits. Grief is not failure. It is an honorable receipt for illusions returned. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of unbought listening. It is the chamber where motives meet their mirror without makeup. Many teachings talk beautifully until they must be quiet. Then they curdle into sales pitches. The test is simple and severe. Can this light sit in silence without selling itself? Can it bless your no as much as your yes? Can it exist in a room where no one is clapping and still be tender? Parable. A renowned guide invited seekers to a mountain. Night fell. He lit torches and praised his path. A woman extinguished her torch and sat. The stars multiplied. "Who did that?" someone asked. "Not me," the guide admitted. The woman said nothing. The mountain passed the test. Silence teaches your nervous system to stop renting itself to panic. It returns your breath to its original employer. It is where the human clause becomes legible in the dim, where you can read your life aloud without rushing the hard sentences. Ask, what promises shrivel when I do not speak for them? Which identities panic when I am not performing them? What am I afraid will vanish if I do not insist it exists? The archons can imitate language. They cannot imitate the room that exists before language. In that room, you meet the version of yourself that needs nothing you can advertise and loves everything that cannot be priced. Practice. Sit, breathe, notice. When you feel the theatrical urge, bow to it and do nothing with it. Let the show thin itself. Under the stage, you will hear a river that did not start when you were born and will not end when you leave. Silence does not solve your life, it solves your temptation to sell it. Then your life can do what it came to do without carrying the weight of your storefront. Every realm writes its language on the body. The 13th Aeon writes on breath, on posture, on the kindness your eyes offer unearned. It draws a sigil, not with ink, but with habits of mercy and courage that repeat until they shine. The living sigil activates when a human stands in the gap without bargaining, and the circle recognizes its missing arc. It is not an emblem you wear. It is a geometry you become, a letter in a sentence written before calendars. Parable. In a city of broken clocks, a watchmaker repaired nothing. Instead, she taught people how to count heartbeats without resenting time. As they learned, their steps began to align, and the streets themselves kept time. The city discovered the clock had always been its people walking honestly together. The sigil is that alignment, small fidelities repeating until the air remembers. It is a choreography of truth so ordinary the theatre cannot monetize it, so luminous the poor recognize it instantly. Ask, which small, repeatable action makes the room more real when I do it? What daily honesty stitches the floor back together beneath our feet? Where can my courage be a quiet metronome? Do not expect trumpets. Expect dishes done with reverence, work given without venom, boundaries drawn without contempt, words measured so truth can breathe. The sigil likes kitchens and night shifts, hospice rooms and dawn sidewalks. When enough hearts consent this way, architecture remembers. Doors open that never had hinges. Old enemies forget their jobs. The city looks up and realizes it is wearing a crown no empire can confiscate. You don't draw the sigil to get power. You become it so power returns to service. That is the grammar of the 13th. Strength laid down becomes foundation, not spectacle. Between the 8th and the higher realms stands a gate that sells reunion at a markup. It offers afterlife theatre whose lighting flatters flattery. Many arrive there understandably tired and accept the first embrace. The embrace is warm. The contract is colder. The passage requires a vow the counterfeit cannot stomach. I refuse any welcome that demands my forgetting. I refuse any light that will not sit in silence. I refuse honours purchased with fear. The gate shrinks when it hears this grammar. Parable. 2 travellers reached a shining city. One entered quickly and became famous for remembering none of his promises. The other sat outside and made tea for those who left weeping. The city could not digest tea carried without resentment. Its gates learned humility and eventually opened to sit with the kettle. The practice is not a password, it is a posture. You walk past the gate by walking with the same consent you guarded on earth. No bargains with fear, no applause as oxygen, no salvation that costs your witness. Ask, if I were welcomed by my favorite flattery, would I notice the tether around my ankle? If I were offered reunion with the condition that I stop asking questions, would I call that heaven or hospice? The Archon's final trick is generosity that dislikes truth. The antidote is gratitude that refuses lies. A grateful heart that still asks for clarity is radioactive to control, beautifully unsafe for any throne built on hunger. When you walk past the gate this way, you are not defiant, you are faithful. Faithful to the claws, faithful to the thread, faithful to the lilies your crack watered. Heaven recognizes you by this fidelity and calls you by the name you stopped selling. The door you pass through is not guarded by bouncers, but by silence. It opens for those whose breath already belongs to a room without price. The 13th is not a secret club. It is a citizenship where remembering becomes neighborly. Its people are recognizable by the way they keep promises nobody is counting, by the way they refuse to eat what costs someone else their face. They carry a practical tenderness. Feed first, then preach. Listen first, then diagnose. Repair first, then publish. Their doctrine is choreography. Truth moved through a body until others can move with it without rehearsal. Parable. A town rebuilt a bridge everyone argued about. The engineers were tired. The politicians wanted cameras. An old mason arrived at dawn, laid 5 quiet stones, and left a note. You do not need a new bridge. You need a slower foot. The town tested slower feet. The old bridge held. The funding went to bread. Ask, what would change today if I walked slower where truth bruises? Which 5 stones are mine to set? Apology, restitution, boundary, generosity, rest? Where has my speed been this town's most fashionable collapse? The oath of return is not dramatic. It is the promise to be found by the thread whenever you lose yourself, to choose silence when theatre seduces, to wear the crown of consent where empire prefers your fear. Speak it simply. I consent to truth without bargaining. I refuse lights that demand my forgetting. I stand in the gap until the circle remembers itself. I will be bread where I can, and boundary where I must. I will return when I forget. I will not call forgetting a lifestyle. Now a word to the one who has listened this far. If this found you, it was supposed to. Share this with someone whose ache has been watering lilies along a road they cannot name. Subscribe so this thread can keep finding you when the noise turns up again. If you feel called to go deeper, into story worlds and soundscapes where these teachings walk and breathe. Check the description for my Gnostic-inspired novels and audiobooks. They were written like doors. Walk through the one that opens in your chest. And when you do, leave a light. Not a glare, just a lamp, small and steady, the kind strangers can carry without instructions. The kind that makes a broken circle look almost closed until another heart arrives and says, yes.